When you saw that, when you see England maybe gaining a little bit of momentum for themselves with Root and Malan's partnership, how did you see it that Australia managed to turn the screw and turn things back in their own way?
Oh, look, to borrow an analogy from our radio broadcast today, there are loads of good movie stars in that team, but they're making a pretty terrible film, and I don't think that's entirely England's fault. The options at their disposal with the ball, I mean, they put in 151 overs in the dirt over 2 days here. Perhaps the most dispiriting moment today was watching Anderson and Broad especially charging in under lights, pink ball, brand new ball and all the rest of it, knowing that the scoreboard pressure is so profound, the probability of them dragging it back is so low. What's left for them? Two fabulous cricketers. It's not their fault that Plan A, Archer, Wood, Stone, they're all injured. Well, not Wood, but, you know, taken as a whole, that Plan A was not possible. So they've gone to their seasoned veterans and their seasoned champions in the case of Broad and Anderson and Wokes to a certain extent as well. Then you contrast it to Australia in that middle session. We touched on it before the break, but the way that Mitchell Starc, who was a little bit out of favour coming into this series, he's now taken 50 wickets with the pink ball at 18. He is so well suited to it. He bowls at nearly 150 clicks. Nathan Lyon, so much experience. He's played 10 years of Test cricket. He's played so much of that here. He used to roll the pitch here at Adelaide Oval. He was the curator here before he played professional cricket. He knows his ground as well as anybody. He's taken 55 Test wickets here as well. I mean, that is what they're up against. And sure, there were some dreadful shots. I mean, the Ollie Pope dismissal and the Joss Buttler dismissal will be replayed over and over again, but I suppose my sympathy is looking at where they're coming in at. That means that even when there is a clear plan like Starc to Buttler, you can telegraph it so far out. You knew exactly what they were trying to do. Catching cover, 2 slips a gully, across him, wait till he tries to flay one through extra cover. If one hits the seam, it's going to go to the cordon, and off he goes, a 17-ball duck. It felt as if it were foretold. But while he's coming into the situation where England are so far gone in the Test match already, that the probability of them being able to dig out of a hole like that, it just feels like they were totally overwhelmed once the major partnership was broken and they had no answers. And that's partly a function of just not having the cattle you need to win against a team like Australia on a ground like this.
Adam, you say we might get overwhelmed. I'm gonna try and bring about our greatest player here, the weather. Do you have a weather report for us from Adelaide?
All right, the best possible spin for you guys, it might rain tomorrow morning, but it's a day-night Test match. We don't start till 2:30 in the afternoon here, so morning rain may not have any effect on the game tomorrow. There is so much time left here, right? There's 180 overs at the disposal of Australia to dictate terms as they see fit. In all probability, they'll bat. I reckon they'll bat until the stand behind me here, the members' stand, has got the shadow just before it's about to go across the pitch when it's almost impossible to pick the ball out of the hand in that kind of witching hour moment. They'll declare then and give themselves 3 hours at England tomorrow and see if they can wrap it up inside 4 days. That's the reality of what Australia will try and do. And the reason they know how to do it, they do it every year here. No matter who comes to Adelaide for the day-night Test match, this is what effectively happens. So it happened to England as recently as 4 years ago in this corresponding fixture as well. So look, that's what Australia will try and do. England are made of fairly stern stuff, I think, above the shoulders in terms of, you know, they came here with a lot of players who've done a lot of great things over many years, but can they translate that through to batting for, maybe up to 120 or 130 overs when a win is completely off the table? That's a very different question.
Colo, Vish here, long-time fan. I was wondering, was there any sense that Australia were going to, I suppose, make England bat again? Or are they solely focused on, on just dampening their mood, really?
Yeah, follow-on's a bit of a dirty word in the Australian lexicon in recent years, and not because of what happened in 2001 at Calcutta, if you're wondering, but more that they like to give their bowlers every chance to recuperate. In some ways, an unintended consequence of the Cummins-Farrago and Hazelwood missing this week for the precautionary injury he had at Brisbane is that they can bring in 2 fresh bowlers for Melbourne. They don't want to risk it, though. They don't want to run the risk that they have to bowl all day tomorrow and Starc doesn't get a rest. So that's far, in modern cricket, they care far more about bowler workloads than they do about getting a day on the golf course on day 5.
Colo, Steen here, long-time fan also. Everyone's been saying here that the crowd's being so hostile, but what's it like, playing with a crowd again in Australia? Is everyone just up for it? Is everyone kind of producing the goods?
honestly, Steen, it's not hostile. Not compared to crowds that you and I have grown up with. There's 26,000 people here today. There's capacity for 35. I'm not sure if that's a function of the COVID restrictions only loosening in South Australia a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lot of, obviously, the broader conversation around COVID has heated up again in the last few days. So I wouldn't say that it's the kind of abuse over the boundary line you would hear before. If anything, it's more pity, really, and people enjoying themselves in the sun as they have today. I mentioned before, not a cloud in the sky, 27 degrees, a Saturday afternoon. Where would you rather be than Adelaide Oval, perhaps the best cricket ground in the world? They're just loving Australia beat up on England. It's a national pastime, as you know.
Day 3 of the second test, and Adam Collins is talking about pity. Thanks, Adam. God, what a boost to morale. Speaking of the hostile stuff, we're already getting a few patterns throughout this series. Cameron Green getting Root again. Obviously, the Stark and Burn stuff. Lyon getting Pope again. How damaging is that in terms of losing your battles?
Yeah, it can be really damaging, especially early, like seeing patterns within 4 innings.
If we're already getting pity.
Yeah.
Pity patterns.
But I think I said this yesterday, you've got opportunities to get back in the nets, and you've got a million support staff with you on these trips to help you, and you've got an analyst there as well who's trying to help you get over what these patterns could be and how you can combat that within the space of test matches. It's difficult when you're potentially 2-0 down after 2, because you're going to potentially have to radically change something. But yeah, that's what 5 test match series are about. It's about lining your opposition up and working them out and getting the wool over them early.
We don't want to talk too much about luck, but there certainly is fine margins involved. And Australia's fielding has been so infinitely better than England's. The drop catches, I believe there's been about 9 drop catches from England, and at crucial times with Labuschagne and with Warner in the first test. Even Australians' drop catches, which we saw a couple of today, one of them he actually caught. I think we can get it here. Mitchell Starc and Stuart Broad. This obviously ends up going for 6. But he's not going to lose any confidence from this. And obviously it's easy to laugh when you're leading by 250 runs or whatever it was at the time. How much do you have to look at the fine margins and see that when Jason was here, he was talking about controlling the controllables. Where does the line of what's controllable and what not end?
Well, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned luck, because I think if you look back through all of sport, no matter what code, men's, women's, it's not a coincidence that the best teams have the best luck, because, I mean, it's just better preparation, isn't it? It's the fact that Australia have a more settled batting side, which reflects in having a more settled slip cordon. England are a bit out of sorts, and that should not be an excuse, really. And to be fair, it isn't an excuse, but they're in a situation they're in because of, what's happened with the openers over the last couple of years. The fact that, Malan, who is a slip fielder, has come in quite recently. Stokes, who is a exceptional slip fielder, certainly gully fielder, has moved out a bit because of his finger. So suddenly there's a bit of contortion there. But it's the kind of thing that you just have to get right. Like, it's I don't want to say catches win matches. Haven't I? But you're in a situation here where, Kate talked about the support staff. They work on their fielding all the time. They talk to you about how much they work on their fielding. And really, the bigger, when we step back, or rather when we have this gap coming into the third test, that's when, as a support staff, you've got to earn your corn. And there are severe doubts about them as well, all things told, because if you look at all the batters who've come into the England setup, they've done so off the back of good first-class records, and they seem to be worse players after a certain period of time.
Kate, is it just a mental block? They obviously practice these things a million times, but is it just a mental block that these mistakes happen?
Yeah, it must be. Like, you see some of the catches that do get taken in international cricket now, and they're incredible. Like the ones on the boundary, especially. I know Test match cricket is a little bit different in that respect, but no one goes out there to drop catches. You make a mistake, and it's the worst feeling in the world when it's live on telly and then gets repeated, even on the big screen when you get to watch it back. It's horrendous. But I think from England's point of view, you say catches win matches, but I feel like it's more the drops are costing them so much, because I'd love to know what those 9 drop catches have actually cost them in terms of runs. You see Australia drop a catch, and it was almost then a phenomenal catch from Steve Smith, wasn't it? The one that Stark parried and Steve Smith nearly caught it one-handed. But there just doesn't seem to be that spark from England. They're not getting those kind of chances that Australia seem to be getting, and I can't put my finger on why.
Well, I suppose that'd be the bowling, wouldn't it, to an extent? Because, as Colo outlined there about the pace that you need to do something here. Like Cam Green is a great example, actually, because I think he was, vaunted as this great all-rounder. And he, obviously, very early in his Test career, but it's with the ball that he's done the most damage and got out some pretty big scalps now as well.
All right, we'll have to pick up more on that tomorrow. Speaking of catches, you can catch us at the same time tomorrow, just after the coverage, which starts on BT Sport 1 at 3:30 this morning. Matt Smith, joined by Matt Pryor and Sir Alistair Cook. We will see you tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll all be in a great mood. I'm sure we will.